Hi guys, I'm Pasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times. It has been so long since I last recorded a video for you guys, and a lot of my furniture that I had in my background for my videos is already gone. So this is what we have now. These are some of the last shelves that I still haven't sold. So I just kind of used them a little bit with whatever is left to create a little bit of a atmosphere in the channel. So since I do have a long horror movie recommendation video coming, but those always take longer to prepare and edit and all that, I decided to just spontaneously sit down today and talk to you guys about everything that I have watched in the month of October.
It's coffee time!
So some YouTube channels, including my own, focus on a specific type of genre or themes, and I have been talking a lot about horror and some thrillers, but occasionally I watch other things like science fiction or an action movie here and there, sometimes even romance. I find myself, especially attracted to romance when Christmas season comes around. I guess it's because I've always watched a lot of romantic movies with my mom over Christmas, and that's kind of stuck with me. So I always think it's so interesting to see what everybody watches in a month or in 2 months' time. And of course, this video has been inspired by Emma from Spooky Astronauts that does it every month, and I love to watch her videos. And I know that Sarah from Possessed by Horror also is doing this kind of format of video now, so I thought I would give it a try because it gives me the opportunity to also let you guys know of other movies that maybe were not that great, so I don't mention them, or maybe they are not new releases so you don't hear me talking about them, but I still really loved. So I thought it was kind of a way of sharing a bit more of what I have been watching. Alright, so let's open my Letterboxd app. Let's go to my diary and let's scroll back to the 1st of October. I really tried in October to watch one movie a day, and it was stressful, but I managed. Not everything was horror, disclaimer. So the 1st of October I watched The Guilty on Netflix. This was a new release and I was really intrigued because of the title, the premise of the movie, and also because it is Jake Gyllenhaal and I have a soft spot for him. So in this story we follow the character played by Jake Gyllenhaal, and he is a police officer that has been demuted, so he is now just answering the emergency line for phone calls that come from 911, and he ends up answering to a distress call from a woman that claims to have been kidnapped, and he cannot let go of that case. He gets really obsessed. He's trying to figure out where is this woman and how he can save her. Now, even though I do really enjoy seeing Jake Gyllenhaal acting in this movie, I felt like it was missing some sort of power. There was something missing in this movie. It ended up being really redundant at some point, and I do want to watch the original. I didn't know when I watched this movie that it's actually a remake, so now I'm intrigued about the original and I'll make sure to give it a try. I still gave it 2.5, so I mean, not too bad. Next I watched Black as Night. This is part of the new 4 movies released to welcome to the Blumhouse, a collaboration between Amazon and Blumhouse. I do have a specific video talking about the 4 new movie releases if you want to go a little bit more into detail there in that video. But what I can tell you is this movie was really disappointing. I think it was quite messy. It felt a little bit unpolished, and it didn't really offer anything new to the vampire genre, and I was a little bit disappointed with it, so I only gave it 1.5. Then I watched a questionable movie. I did questionable choices apparently on the 2nd of November. I watched The Wedding Year. Not really much to talk about this movie. I already forgot what it was really about. Then I watched Fright Night because I wanted a rewatch of something that I knew that I could really enjoy. This is one of my favorite classic vampire movies. Always loved it. I have been craving vampires this year for some reason, and I just absolutely loved to revisit this classic. I still have not watched the remake. I'm still kind of conflicted about it, but I might watch the remake and then make a comparison video perhaps. So this one, 4.5 for me. Then I rewatched I'm Not a Serial Killer, another one of my favorites. I was looking for comfort in October, obviously. I gave this one 5 stars. I just absolutely love this movie so much. And I also absolutely love the book that the movie is about. If you have not watched this movie yet, I strongly recommend you to give it a try. I think it's one of those hidden gems, and Christopher Lloyd in this movie is fantastic. And this is a movie that I bought without knowing anything about it, and it's been one of my favorite like random purchases I've ever made. So then we have Killing Ground. Actually, this movie, I went into it without high expectations and I ended up having a lot more fun with it. This is an Australian movie and it's kind of like a slasher, but it is a little bit different from your typical slasher film. We have a couple that it's basically trying to have a romantic getaway in this campsite, but then they see something horrific happening, and after that this movie gets a little bit wild. I strongly recommend you this one as well. I haven't heard many people talking about this movie. It just showed up on my Amazon and I had to check it out, and I gave it a solid 3. I think this is a great slasher. Next, There's Someone Inside Your House. I also mentioned this one on my last video. I really enjoyed it. I finished reading the book and I actually enjoyed the movie more than the book, which is weird, but I just felt like this movie was a fun kind of 90s vibe slasher, and it had all of those elements, and I think that's why I had so much fun with it. And I thought the way that they portrayed the killer in the movie was a lot of fun, because it did bring that kind of question of what the heck is happening, who can be the killer, and I don't know, I think it was a lot of fun. So if you guys have not checked it out yet, it's on Netflix. Then I watched Squid Game, but we'll talk about this when we talk about TV shows. The next movie that I watched is The Manor, again part of the Amazon Blumhouse collaboration. This was my favorite one from the new 4 releases, and it focuses a little bit on criticizing the way that we treat the elderly on these kind of facilities, and the way that the movie starts to escalate and it gets crazier and crazier. I really enjoyed, because it did bring a lot of different like horror elements into the movie. It was not perfect, but it was a lot of fun. Then we have Near Dark. Again, I went to one of my favorite vampire classic movies. Like I said, I was in a mood in October, and that mood was vampires. This one I feel like it doesn't get enough love for how good it is, and it's one of those that does embrace the vampire tropes, you know, like vampires not being able to be in the sunlight and stuff like that. And this one is just so good. It's just so good. So if you guys have not checked it out yet and you love vampires, you absolutely must. Then I watched Infinite, and I hated it. It's not like I didn't hate the movie. I think this movie had a really interesting concept. I believe it's an Amazon Prime original, and I wanted to give it a try. It is a futuristic movie in which basically some people are able to recall their memories from their past lives. And I thought that concept was interesting. I've always been interested in those type of sci-fi concepts. But the dialogue, the script, it was just so cringe. It was so predictable. It was just like so ABC, you know, of this type of movies, that it bothered me a lot. So I would say, you know, if you really enjoy sci-fi futuristic movies about this kind of things, you might enjoy it if you can just relax and sit back and just enjoy it for what it is. But I ended up being a little bit annoyed about the dialogue in particular. But anyways, I give it 1.5. Then I watched Bingo Hell, as well as Madres, as part of the Amazon Blumhouse collaboration. I enjoyed some of the humor, some of it in this movie, and I enjoyed the way that they played with the you know, difference in neighborhoods and gentrification. I just think it was meant a little bit perhaps just to be an episode of a show. Like for me, it felt like a Crip Show episode, but just like a little bit stretched. so that's why I didn't love it as much as I was hoping to, but I still had a lot of fun with it. And then I watched Madres, which I really loved the concept, the idea behind this, because I was unaware of the true story that this movie was inspired by. I just feel like my problem with this movie, my biggest issue, was that it was sold as a horror movie, and I felt it was more of a drama with some investigation added to it. But the acting, the cinematography, the powerful story, everything was there. I just was missing more of the horror elements, and they had such a good concept here with this movie to bring a lot more horror into it that I just felt like it was a pity that they didn't. But I still recommend you guys to check that one out. And then you guys, I finally watched Creep. Now, Creep has been one of those movies that I've always kind of considered watching, but at the same time I didn't know if it was going to be for me or not, because it's a very particular type of film. It's one of those handheld camera movies, and I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna love it or not. So I decided to go ahead and just watch it, and I gotta tell you, I really enjoyed this movie. It was fun. I didn't expect to find this movie funny, but it was funny. It was engaging. I never got bored. It's just basically the story of this creep, of this guy that puts an ad online looking for people that have a camera, that have some experience behind the camera, to come and film him for, you know, for later in life. And when the people get there, he's just acting really weird. That's all I'm gonna tell you. But I really love this. And the main character here, he is terrific in the film. His range and the way you just believe him as a character is just fantastic. And let me tell you guys, right after I watched Creep 2, and guess what? I ended up loving part 2 more than part 1. I don't know what it was, but part 2, I guess it's because you kind of know what you're getting yourself into with part 2. I just absolutely loved this film. Loved it. So if I would ever rewatch any of these, I think it will be part 2. I really love it. If you guys were like me, kind of afraid of going into this movie because of the type of way that the film was filmed, I would really strongly recommend you to give it a try. It took me too long to give it a try, honestly. I should have watched this way before. Then I rewatched The Collector because it had been some time since I had watched it, and I wanted to see if it still was an enjoyable film for me. I still really enjoy it. I think it was a lot of fun. I absolutely love the violence in this film. There's something that happens to an animal that I don't like, but let's not get into that. But yeah, I really enjoyed this rewatch in the month of October. And then I was really curious about the original Rabbit movie because I've never watched it. So I decided to watch the original and then the remake. So the original is from 1977, and it is by David Cronenberg. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great, but it's not my cup of tea when it comes to films. However, when it comes to the remake, this is another case, weird case, in which I loved the remake more. There is something so relatable to the main character in the remake and the way that she's being portrayed, the way that she has to go through everything. It just made it a little bit more kind of personal. I don't know, I just felt like I was really invested in this movie a lot more. And I loved the main character here a lot more. So the original got for me 2.5 and the remake got 3.5. Then I watched The Addams Family from 2019, this cartoon adaptation. And I've been meaning to watch this one for a while because obviously I love The Addams Family, but I was extremely disappointed. I thought it was really dull. I thought it was really boring, and I didn't really find it funny when it had to be funny. So let's just say it was not for me, and it's a pity because I thought I was gonna love it because I love The Addams Family, but it was a disappointment for me. I was going through my Amazon Prime list because I want to watch most of the horror ones that I still have there, before I move, because most probably they're not going to be available for me anymore. When you change countries, you know guys, that the movies that they offer tend to be different. So one of those movies that I had on my watch list was this one, Ravage. I don't really know how to pronounce that correctly, so pardon me. But it is the story of a nature photographer that is taking some shots outside when she witnesses some guys doing something illegal, let's say, and then she starts to run to tell the police what she's seen, but she ends up being chased, being hunted by this group of men. And the movie can get a little bit into the torture porn scenario here, so be aware of that. If you like movies like revenge, I think you might enjoy this one as well. It gets really bonkers, and the ending is insanity. I feel like if you've enjoyed movies that are a little bit more on the grotesque side of things, you might enjoy this one. I just cannot really tell you exactly what kind of things because I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's not for the people that cannot stomach some gore. Another one that I had on my Amazon watch list was The Bride, and I decided to give it a try. So this movie is about a young couple that are about to get married, so they go visit the boyfriend's family, and a lot of strange things start to happen in the family, and she starts to realize that this family is hiding a really dark secret and some sort of like thing that they do, some sort of tradition that might put her in danger. Now, I wanted to love this movie more than I did because I absolutely love the premise of it, the idea behind it. Once you get to understand what this family secret is, I thought that was really interesting to explore. It's just, it got a little bit boring for me, I would say, but it does have some really nice shots, some really nice ideas. It was just not quite there for me. Then I watched Society. This was another rewatch, okay? I wanted something comforting. Calling this Society a comforting movie might be controversial, but this movie is hilarious. It is a lot of fun. It's cheesy, and the end kind of scene, where all the gore happens, the special effects are fantastic. They are still fantastic today. If you watch it, it's 10 out of 10. I would recommend. I would not recommend watching this while eating, so I'm saying. But yeah, I really loved it. Another one that I don't really want to talk too much about is The Voyeurs, because this is an Amazon exclusive that was too long. It's a thriller, but it was too long, and I don't think it's worth your time, honestly. It's kind of like one of those stalker thrillers. Then I watched Kill Your Friends, and I wanted to watch this one because it felt kind of a British take on American Psycho. Unfortunately, the movie was not as funny as I expected it, and I ended up getting a little bit bored because things were progressing really slowly and everything was kind of like meh. So yeah, maybe would not really recommend this one. Then I watched The Shortcut, which, to be fair, I've already forgotten what it's about. It's one of those horror movies about an urban legend that are just like so easy to predict and to see that once you watch them you completely forget about them because they have nothing special, nothing new to offer to the genre. So would not recommend. Then I watched Night Teeth on Netflix. This is another vampire movie, and I thought this one was fun. I thought it had a nice pacing and it had engaging characters, but again, it didn't really bring anything new to the vampire genre or did anything that really wowed me. But I would still recommend you guys to give it a try, to give it a watch. It was decent. Then I watched a movie that you all don't have to see. I already watched it for you. And that's called The Good Things Devils Do. This one was just not good. I believe this is the one where Kane Hodder was in it. Yeah. And honestly, it was just bad. It was just bad. Moving on, I finally watched VHS. I probably was also another one of the only humans on the planet that had not watched this movie yet. I think the same feeling that I had with Creep. I was kind of kind of avoiding the movie. I don't know why. It's just this type of films, like handheld films, they end up disappointing me. I think I loved the Blair Witch Project so much that now it's hard for me to love other movies that have this kind of format. And I particularly love one of the stories, the first one actually, and after that the other ones were not as interesting for me, so I enjoyed it, but it was not a favorite of mine. Then I watched Nobody Sleeps in the Woods Tonight Part 2, which I mentioned in my last video. It was fun, but it ended up getting too silly for me. Then we have Hypnotic that I also mentioned in my last video, and it was a disappointing watch for me. I was really excited because Katie Siegel is in it, but this thriller ended up being not thrilling or suspenseful for me. Then comes a couple of rewatches like The Cabin in the Woods, 10 out of 10. Nightmare Before Christmas, 10 out of 10. Halloween, I gave this one a 4.5. I rewatch this movie every year, absolutely love it. So these have been the movies that I have rewatched this Halloween, obviously. And Trick or Treat, which is one of my absolute favorite movies of all times. Can never get enough of this movie. When it comes to TV shows, I've only watched like 2 full TV shows in the month of October. One of them was Squid Game. Absolutely a new favorite. I thought it was genius, the way that the episodes were created to leave you in tension at the end of every episode with that really cool cliffhanger. The characters, the way that you could relate to them, you could feel with them. It was such a clever, intelligent show, the way that the games were designed. I talked a little bit more as well in my last video, but if you have not watched this show yet, I strongly recommend you to check it out. And it's getting a sequel, it's official already, and I'm really excited about it. The ending of the first season was a slightly disappointment for me because I didn't want that to actually happen, but I'm really excited for the next season. And the other show that I watched, which I haven't heard many people talking about, is The Chestnut Man. It is a show on Netflix, and it is one of those investigation thrillers, and it is about the murders of certain women that are appearing murdered, and always in the murder scene there is like these little figures made with chestnuts, and the police starts to investigate. That's basically what happens. It's your typical, you know, murder investigation. When it comes to crime mystery thrillers, there is a bunch of them on Netflix, and I felt that this one so far has been my favorite because it gets kind of rid of a lot of cliches, and not only that, but it's really gripping. It's really an amazing show that is a slow burner, but it's so rewarding when you're getting to the end. So if you're a fan of the genre, if you really like this type of crime investigations, when, you know, especially when a murder has a specific way of leaving the murder scene, I always am fascinated by that. So I think if you love this type of things, you're really gonna enjoy this show. And I think it's a Danish show from Denmark. So if you want to watch it, as always, I recommend you strongly to watch it in original with subtitles, because it always has a complete different atmosphere and flavor when you hear the original voices. Alright guys, so I hope that you enjoyed this type of video, this type of format. I'm new to this type of video, so I hope that it was interesting enough. I hope that I get better at doing these videos in the future. It's gonna be probably learned by doing. It was my first attempt. I hope that you enjoyed to see what I have been watching throughout the month of October. Now, November and December, I'm gonna be extremely busy with moving, so I might combine these 2 months and do a video on those two together. Let me know down below if you're really interested in these type of videos where I sit down and just have a really relaxed talk about the things that I have been watching throughout the month. As always, you guys, thank you so much for the support. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being patient right now, because I don't really have the time to put up too much content, and I really hope to see you all guys, as always, in our next coffee time. Bye!